You're on.
Okay.
You're good.
Have a quorum. So we'll call a meeting to order. First item is to adopt our agenda. Comments?
I'll move.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. No public comment. Item number 3, draft minutes of the January 22nd Park and Rec Commission meeting. We're looking to approve this. Comments?
No comments. I don't.
It was one to remember. So a motion to approve?
Motion approved. I'll second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving right along, the draft minutes of the March 12th board meeting. When you see this, you'll see that it's a new format, what I would probably title legal.
I can speak to that a little if you guys want.
Okay.
It is, so the board formally approved at the February board meeting a change to what's called action minutes. The board bylaws spoke to how the minutes are done. The commission bylaws, neither of them speak to it. It's silent on the issue. But the board bylaws have been changed, and we have since moved forward with the fire commission minutes, because you guys haven't had a meeting, doing them in this style, and I would certainly recommend the Park and Rec Commission do it as well. Action minutes, it gets to actions, it doesn't get into the hyperbole or any of the other such stuff, and now that we're recording meetings, you have a solid record if you really want to know who said what or what was said or discussed.
Is that an action you can just take, you don't have to do?
100%. Yeah, I would just follow the board's lead in it, because again, the bylaws are silent to it, everything else.
Right.
Now, if, there was objections amongst the commission and wanted to keep minutes in the format that they had been getting produced, well, then we could certainly entertain that as well. But I personally would recommend just moving to this style. It's a cleaner, this is what the majority of governing bodies do.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, then, next item, number 5, the draft Park and Rec.
Well, hold on, can I back you up again?
Okay.
Were there no comments on any of the items in the minutes? Or thoughts or questions about the board meeting? I know there was a meeting before this that I actually forgot to include in here, not forgot, it just didn't get put in. I sent you all an email that said they amended the P&R bylaws to address the public communication piece. So that is in there. I've also created a PR commission at Marinwood email address that's listed on the website. So if people want to communicate to the commission, they can send it to that, and staff has access to that, can easily forward it on to commissioners.
So that's what happens then? You get it, or Luke gets it, and
Yep.
forward it on
Yep.
to all of us? Or?
Well, it depends. If somebody,
Yeah.
if it specifically says, please share with John Campo,
Right.
then we'll send
Or
it
if
to
it's
you.
just to the commissioners?
If it's to the commission as a whole, I'll forward it to the commission. Yeah. And then there was one thing at this meeting that I keep meaning to tell you guys about. Just so you know, as part of the district manager report for the park maintenance facility, that is now formally in the hands of the county. We've submitted our application, is in what is known as an initial review, where they're basically looking at the packet for completeness, not necessarily for the validity of the project itself.
The planning commission?
The planning, the planning department
Right,
is
planning
looking at it
department.
first.
Yeah,
So they have 30 days by which to respond to the district and say, we need XYZ documents, or this is complete. If they need something, the district then has 30 days to respond and provide whatever it is they need, or make a case as to why we feel they don't need that. When that process is done, it then goes through, my understanding is most likely through the planning commission, but it really will be deemed whatever the county decides is necessary as part of the design review application, is specifically what we would.
When is the 30 days up?
It went in on March 7th, so that was when it was stamped, so
Right.
April
Yeah.
7th, 6th, somewhere around there.
It's nice that that's
It's happening, and,
Do you have any indication that it's not complete? Like,
No.
have you had any communication with them, or?
no, other than, you know, when we went there, Bill Hansel and I both went to the planning department to submit it, paid, you know, $5,000 and change design review application fee. They considered it to be a minor review, whatever that means, as opposed to major review, so it was a little bit less than what it could have been. You know, in a first glance, they believe they saw everything. They've asked, the planner asked a couple questions just for clarification. It is up on the website. If you go to the planning department website and you look at current project applications and then click on Lucas Valley, you'll find it. It's under Marinwood Design Review. And all of Bill's final drawings that we submitted. None of the scope or anything like that has changed. Everything is what the board approved at the meeting back in August or September, October. From height, size, walls, everything. Bill just gave them some of the drawings in the way that they wanted to see them.
So none of my projects go to the planning commission, so I'm not sure if you know this. After they determine that it's complete or incomplete, then it goes to the commission for review, and then is there a public hearing?
I don't know that there is a public hearing, but I know, it depends. If it goes through the planning commission, it will, they will solicit, I think either way, they'll solicit a public comment
Right.
for 30 to 45 days. Planning commission meetings, if the commission makes a formal action or recommendation on it, obviously are public meetings and it would be agendized. If it gets to that point, then Bill and I would also attend. But it's not, say, a public hearing in the same way that you would get it for like a CEQA thing or something along those lines. Great, anyway, that's the update.
Okay. Now we'll move on to number 5.
Sorry, thank you.
Draft Park and Recreation Department budgets for the fiscal year 2019-2020. Is our initial review.
Yeah. I tried to give you a pretty detailed memo of where we are at this point in the process of creating the budget. I will say it's already been slightly refined since this was released on Friday night, just as I am able to dig more into it. And when I say refined, I'm talking about, you know, okay, have garbage rates increased? Where's our telecom bills at? What, you know, these types of things that are just simply administrative and operational in nature, not necessarily a matter of doing business, not necessarily the business we're in. Luke and I sat extensively. Robin was in this as well and kind of went through a lot of what the rec program offerings are for the entire year, new projections, where we think we are. So a lot of that is pretty solid in where it stands. It is hard to look at these budgets on a standalone basis without actually looking at the whole. Because these are 2 departments amongst, you know, ultimately 4 departments of the district. So you gotta see how everything plays out to the whole. I have not touched the overall impact of taxes over what was budgeted for this current year, but you'll notice that they're slightly different because each time I do this and I re-enter them in and get the whole, I am, my practice for the last few years has been, I basically bring property taxes to a level where the rec department and the fire department both have about show a surplus of about $10,000 revenue over expense to the nearest 1/10% of allocating property taxes, and the rest stays in park. So you might see differences in there that says, oh, well, how come more taxes here? The tax lines are the same, and those that typically is the last thing I analyze. Is more, you know, we get the April roll-ins and the dumps from the Department of Finance. And I can have slightly better projections as to where I think we're going to end the year, and then usually I'll do a 3-year analysis. Anything larger than that in a property tax world is kind of an exercise in futility. I'm looking for what are those 3-year trends.
Right.
Otherwise, Luke is, I'm happy to turn this over to him. He can certainly speak to some of the things that we have put in here from a programming perspective. I'm happy to talk about some of the things that we've put in from a capital perspective, even though I think I listed them out pretty well in here. Although we did have a development today that might change this a little bit. The Lions donation.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, well, was there anything specific, any questions about, anything specific that we made changes to, but,
Luke, I have a question.
yeah.
Is the park irrigated with reclaimed water?
It is, yeah.
So it's just MMWD is continuing to raise reclaimed rates as though it is domestic water.
Well, the big hit that we're getting from MMWD this year is less about rates and more about this capital maintenance fee. You guys might have heard a little bit about it.
The size of the meter?
Yes.
Yeah.
And all meters. Doesn't matter if it's reclaimed or regular. They're selling it as not a huge hit to households because most households have a 5/8 inch meter. Some of the newer construction or households that were forced to put in fire suppression systems have a 1-inch meter. The set fee starts at $166 annually. For us, we have like 2-inch meters on some of our things. Those fees alone are over $1,000 and have nothing to do with how much water you use. Their rationale is it has to do with how much water you could potentially pull from the system, but they don't look at your usage or apply it like that. They just say you have this size meter. We have a large meter of actual potable water primarily because it also feeds the pool, feeds the firehouse, feeds this community center. That meter is a 2-inch meter. But we also have 1.5-inch meters, we have 3/4-inch meters, so the price escalates dramatically based on the size of the meter. So I think I put it here, for park alone, on that set fee alone, kicked us up $3,300. And that has nothing to do with, we could use less water, and we're still gonna get hit with that $3,300. But they're anticipating a 4% increase to overall rates, usage. Yeah, yeah. And the kicker on that too is that in a weird way, on the usage side, impacts the sewer bill. Because they calculate your sewer bill based on your water usage.
Some things never change. I mean, I remember when there was so much reclaimed water, they were begging people to
Yeah,
take it.
yeah, well, I hear you.
And then I remember sitting in MMWD at night saying, I already flushed that water once, I am not paying this thing.
Well, they have two other fees. They have a basic, what they call a service fee, which is a set fee. And then they have a watershed fee, which is a set fee. Both of those appear on every bi-monthly water bill. Those don't touch reclaimed meters. So they're, for our, we have 2 meters that are using reclaimed water out of, I think, how many meters did we wind up having? 7?
I think so.
Sounds right.
Yeah. And so the other 5 are potable, and for you to set up reclaim, you gotta use a certain amount, and, you know, they don't wanna just come in and pipe you a reclaim for a drip system for a little landscaping like a creekside park per se, you know? And then we have other ones too, where we have irrigation set to something, but it also feeds a water fountain.
Yeah, that's
So-
like the mini park in Creeks, I have that. set
Exactly,
up, right.
exactly, so, unless we wanted to bring in yet another meter to say, okay, here's our irrigation meter, at which point we're gonna get hit with more of these fees, because these fees are by meter. We're forced to use potable water out there, which is
No, that's-
obviously much more expensive, than reclaimed.
So, just first guess, right, because we go through, I'm looking at rec and like the fees that are associated with camps and associated with pools and things like that. So, just as a rule, I guess, again, not holding anyone to anything, what's our trend? Like, we feel like, you know, pool increased by X, camps will increase, or, I mean, like what's the trend saying for those as a revenue source for us? Do you feel like we're kind of hedging towards?
Well, you mean in terms of what we expect at the end of this fiscal year,
Mhm.
or like for the summer, for like the summer program, like
Yeah.
in terms of year-over-year increases or
Mhm.
just that? I mean, the trend is we have been increasing each year in over budgeted revenue as well. As far as percentage, I'd say like, I don't know, something around 3 to 5% we've had.
Yeah, it would be interesting to look at. One tricky part, especially on the rec side, is we have rec seasons that don't necessarily
It's
correspond with
yeah,
our
right.
fiscal year. Not that we can't run that and look at it still, and I budget it by the rec season and figure that it comes out in the wash in the long
Yeah,
run
yeah,
as
yeah.
you go through a few
Yeah.
years. I don't say, okay, here is the first 3 weeks is actually gonna go to this budget, and the last 7 weeks is gonna go to next year's budget. That's way too much work for
But
our.
I think
Just as a rule, it's like kind of where we think we're gonna be.
yeah, I mean, that, we're sort of on trend to kind of keep, like, that's our goal, but what's been happening, I mean, just in long term, we're pretty maxed out when it comes to
Yeah.
like enrollment.
For
And-
sure.
And even in like on the pool side and the swim lessons, there's like waiting lists for like every swim lesson time. It's like one of those things like, well, there's not much more besides the fee increases.
Right.
There's other areas we can get creative, but for a long time, the last like 10 years, we've seen the program grow in terms of number of bodies on our property, which has been, you see what it looks like now. And right now, I mean, we're pretty at capacity, and I think, I don't want to get to the point where we're diminishing returns where, things are so big that we're starting to see.
Right.
So right now, it's like about quality, keeping the prices ahead of the assumed increases in costs and as the minimum wage goes up and all these other
Right.
materials go up. So, but I looking through it, Rob and I sat down and planned out, looked at what we're going to be paying and what we're going to be buying and what we're bringing in, and I think we're on track to continue that trend as best we can.
Yeah.
So.
I guess I just want to clarify. I was that line of questioning was not a what way are we going to maximize, like get another 1,000 kids, like that's not where I was coming from.
Right.
It's just like what's the trend? We have wait lists. I mean, there's levers, like you're saying, there's fees that can increase, right? So I'm not saying that I have any interest of
Sure.
like maxing out every square inch of the place, to
Right,
squeeze
yeah.
another dollar out. That's not where this is, where I was, it was just kind of like, at what point though is the quality over quantity, but then quality comes with the price,
Mhm.
right? And so then you can justify a cost increase without increasing headcount, right? And then also, pull in some extra.
I think that's where we are, like philosophically.
Yeah.
It's I think we've seen what we can handle, and I think we've probably gone even a little bit too far. But you don't really know till you
Yeah,
see
right,
it.
yeah.
And the goal now is to how can we bring be more creative, bring a higher quality, and even maybe in some areas reduce the number of kids in the camps, number of things, people in the pool. To the point where we can give everyone like that much better of an experience, where that is a more valuable time for them. So that's sort of, I think, looking ahead, that's like what the direction we're trying to move in for sure.
And then last, is there a way, again, if it's not the next meeting, just I would love to see, like again, not by fiscal year, by season, right? So for pool and for camps, for all intents and purposes, summer, of what was what's our 3-year trend? Like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, this year, right? And just so you can, I mean, I don't know if anyone, I would like to see what it looks like from not only a revenues perspective, but like from an increase in headcount to expenses to like, what does it look like?
Oh yeah, we could definitely we have all that. I mean,
Yeah,
not
it's just
not
pulling
all.
it.
Yeah, so we just have to kind of compile it in a
Yeah.
it's easy to look at for sure.
I would love, I mean, for me, I would like to see it. If no one else wants to see it, that's fine, we don't have to do the exercise, but I would like to see it.
Well, I think there's two things, trying to put it into bite-sized chunks that can be easily digested in this format versus just setting up a time to come down and we can show you what we got and have a little bit of a better time to walk through and explain it and have access and be able to pull, various data kind of at our fingertips.
Okay.
Which any staff is always happy to do.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, there's factors that roll up to these numbers
Sure,
here too.
sure.
And I'm happy to sit down
Yeah.
and show what those factors are, if there was an interest for it.
Mm-hmm.
I know Luke puts together his year-over-year comparisons, that basically say, here's where we finished this year versus where we finished last year. I don't want to speak for Luke, but, I mean, he has that for years. It wouldn't be that hard to just say, hey, here's the year before that, I don't
Yeah,
think.
we've got a lot of,
I think some of the things we would have to do a little bit more work on, just to put it into a readable format, is things like, to your point of, what were the total youth served? What, meaning, how many individual youth came through our programs? What was our average daily attendance of youth? How many staff heads did we have, broken down by thing? We have that information, it's just a matter of consolidating it into a piece of paper that could easily be shared, as opposed to discussed when we're talking about these things. One of the other things too, when you're looking at that, is thinking about factors that are out of our control, and I kind of put that bullet point under the rec one there, in that we got hit in where we normally do a lot of our specialty programs over at the middle school. I believe we're doing some at the Waldorf campus, I think we're doing a couple at Mary Silvera.
Yeah.
The hard part about that is multiple things. One, they're not right here. Two, people who are at our specialty programs also enroll for things like swim lessons, stuff like that, where we can walk them and get them from the middle school to there. Walking them from Mary Silvera or even Waldorf to here as a whole, so that got cut back. And to Luke and Robin's credit, I think they recognize that beyond, there is the quality versus quantity thing, but at the end of the day, people are still counting on us to have a place to put their kids. So they boosted their enrollment in a lot of their regular camps, and I think, which means boosting staff and everything else, which is why you see that.
Yeah.
So I think in that regard, this summer is gonna be an interesting litmus test as to how far we can stretch the physical envelope of this park grounds in terms of how many kids we can really put in here and everything else.
It's thankfully, something we've talked about for years, because we always knew that was coming in terms of this Miller Creek Middle School. Like, every year's a battle, just to get, can we get some classrooms, can we get the blacktop, it's always, tricky just getting that secured. And then, but we've had this conversation as long as I've been here as well. We always have to think, what if, and so, we've had, it's been in the background, so it wasn't, it was very disappointing, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, we never thought this would happen. So thankfully, we've had some other ideas and areas we can utilize. So we're gonna see what happens. It'll definitely be a little bit of an experiment, but.
How many more kids are you expecting?
I think overall, we're not gonna see, much of a difference. We're probably absorbing some kids that would have been split off and going to some of the specialty camps that would be over at the middle school. We increased, a couple of the camps that we had lower enrollment just in general for in years past, and we said, well, we can accommodate some more of those. So it's small adjustments to some of the camps that were set to lower maximums, and then limiting some of the enrollment for the camps that seemed a little bit hard to handle last year. So it's a little balancing out. I wouldn't say we've increased a huge amount of the enrollment overall. I think
Overall, it's probably decreased, but I think just within the programs that we run ourselves,
yeah, we've absorbed a little bit of that, and that's.
I think we've increased that to some degree.
And that was based on us foreseeing that this summer, some of the camps that don't fill up, there's like a few age groups that we don't ever like fully max out on. The goal would be to kind of like make up for that lack of some of these specialty camps, would be to go ahead and max out on those, which we have the staff for, we have the space for theoretically, and we're just gonna market those and, try to, a little bit harder. So I don't think we're gonna see some dramatic change in necessarily, but they'll be here a little bit more during the day, because we had a good, we kind of throw them all down to blacktop, some of the older camps for certain parts of the week. That was helpful. We're just going to be creative and spreading out and, utilizing the space a little bit more efficiently. So I don't know if that really answers your question. But.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if there's any desire really to increase any further, kind of just going back to that quality.
No,
It
I mean,
seems like we're kind of maxed out.
From our point of view, absolutely not. I mean, at this point, there's the whole demand issue, but we haven't been increasing the camp enrollment like the max what we'll take for a given camp. We haven't increased those numbers. It's more when we're looking at what we probably will be bringing in based on past trends. We're assuming that we're gonna have some of the kids that would have been over in some like sewing camp or whatever, they're gonna be staying with the full day in our regular day camp, and it's the same number of kids will just be in those. So definitely not trying to increase enrollment in any of the given age groups, except for some of the ones that were artificially small when they were starting out as like a new thing or something. We've seen that they have the room and the capacity for it.
All right? Okay.
Yep, thank you.
The only other thing I would point out within here is on the rec side, whether this winds up staying through board adoption or not, is to be determined, but right now I'm trying to throw some money into some upgrades for the community center kitchen. So I budgeted about 54,000 at that. and
So
we're,
that's for this fiscal year coming up, the
for
kitchen?
1920.
Oh, because we had talked, the last time we toured, it just seemed like that was years down the road.
A full blown is, I think, and Luke and I have been talking, and this needs to get flushed out and explored. I wanted to put it in the budget right now as a placeholder, so that way I could see when I'm done with it, everything, where do we stand across the whole thing, and can this stay in there? This would not be nearly like, say, the scope of project like what we did next door. We'd be looking at, some prefabbed, yet industrial type cabinetry. I think that we have the in-house staff that could handle most of what we're looking at and taking it in order of cabinets, counters, and flooring in that order. I mean, cabinets and counters kind of go hand in hand, and then potentially flooring, and definitely a new oven. And obviously you'd have to get a new sink, things like that, but we would actually probably look to remove completely the dishwasher.
Well, that's a pretty full-scale remodel, right? I mean,
To a degree, we're not taking down walls, we're not doing all that. I think our park guys can,
yeah,
we would order these through kind
But
of
if
a
we
big
did
box
that,
type retailer.
there wouldn't be a phase 2 later. I mean, that
Right.
would be it.
Yeah, ideally, and it would fit our needs.
Yeah.
And again, I'm on the record as saying, and we'll stay on the record as saying, I don't think moving that towards a commercial kitchen is a proper decision. I'm actually against it, for a lot of reasons. But it needs new cabinets, it needs new counters, new flooring would be great. But you start getting into, lighting and this and that, let's see what we can accomplish, and if we can keep this all in-house using force account labor, maybe with the exception of, actually installing the counters.
So our staff would do all that install?
Maybe. That's what
Yeah.
that's what we're flushing out, to find out where a lot of it lies. I mean, the count, when you,
I mean, when they take on a project like that, like what happens to everything else? I mean, that's not a small amount of work.
it's not a small amount of work, and those are all the parts that we have to
Yeah.
lay out. If we look to send this out to bid, that number's not even close.
Sure.
And that's the only way I think we'll get it done right now. Otherwise, we're a few years out.
Well, right, and that last time we talked, that was kind of the
Right.
expectation.
Yeah, but it's a priority. Replacing that oven is an absolute something that's going to happen.
Has that failed since the last time?
It's got issues. It doesn't work right. It doesn't hold temp real good. We know what we need. We know what we want to keep it off of a commercial oven, so we don't have to start putting in suppression, but get something that's got some commercial level durability to it. I've gotten a lot of research and looked into a specific brand.
Shane, at one point you said you might have a thought on like getting one from a restaurant going out of business or something, or?
Yeah, yes, I mean, we could put some energy behind that. I just wonder now, hearing Eric remind me, I wonder if getting a true commercial range would then trigger the need for a suppression system, whether it's used or not.
Absolutely it would.
So like that.
Because it's got the pilots are always on,
Mhm.
and that's the problem. you know, it's just got that always lit flame, and once you got that, you need a suppression
You get a
system.
nice oven, but then you have to pay how many tens of thousands of dollars for a suppression system, right?
Right, you know, so, again, I think we're moving in the right direction. I think Robin will, love us to pieces. At a minimum, we can get her an oven, and would be ecstatic if we could get that kitchen back up and running. I don't wanna dump a lot of money into making it a super nice kitchen, because at the end of the day, a lot of rental groups are using it. I mean, it needs industrial level stuff, not high-end, home level stuff.
Just to throw this out there, I don't know if this is feasible, but the county is offering rebates to electrify appliances, so to buy like an induction oven range, they offer rebates to do that, and since we have solar panels, then that might be an interesting way to go. I don't know if there's such a thing as an induction, a commercial scale induction oven. I know we have solar panels at our house. I know the county is offering incentives to do that. We are planning to switch from gas to electric for that reason. I don't know if it makes sense here, but
Yeah, one of the things we've been looking at is dual fuel, where the range itself is gas, but the oven is electric. I actually have one of those in my house, and I think the thing works great.
I think the point is to try and get off of gas,
Right.
get off of fossil fuels. So,
Right.
I mean, the situation we have here where we're set up with solar panels makes that attractive. I don't know if that's a good fit, but just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's something that's worth looking into.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. Like I said, whether or not, when this whole thing fishes out at the end of this process, we can afford to keep $55,000 tagline in there. And again, that's dependent upon us doing the majority of the work being done by Force Account.
And this is general too, it's not administrative.
All
We're
general.
getting one.
So that requires specific material for the pots and
Correct.
pans?
Just a ferrous metal. They can't be aluminum. So any ferrous metals you can use,
Okay.
stainless steel or cast iron.
So in the setting of the center, would people bring their own pots and pans, or would it be stocked with?
In terms of rental groups, they
Right.
bring in everything, and we let them know that this is not a food prep kitchen. This is your, your assembly
Finishing.
kitchen. You know, you cannot come in here and prep food with, it's not,
So aluminum just doesn't work?
Yeah,
or-
so it won't work. So that's a good point. You could put it in the oven, because that's a conduction oven,
Right.
but on
You can't,
the
it's not that
range,
won't work.
yeah.
yeah, it's,
Oh, that's interesting.
and that stuff is mostly used
Hey,
by
Carrot,
us. And the Lions Club uses it too, because they meet in there twice a month. But in terms of like outside events and things like that, you cannot prepare food in there. For us, we're boiling pasta.
Right.
You know, making a gigantic batch of mac and cheese.
Yeah.
Not,
Right.
raw poultry and all this other stuff isn't going on. And it's heat meat. We're heating up frozen chicken nuggets.
Right. And you said there was you alluded to a development from the Lions Club donation? Or
Yes.
related to this or related to?
No, they have donated a small amount to put towards an oven.
Oh, okay.
And small, like. Yeah,
One knob, you know?
yeah.
What
Actually, but
commercial
with that
gas
said,
range go for?
Commercial?
Is that what you're talking about?
it wouldn't be a commercial level.
It's
The,
like a heavy duty.
the actual brand we're looking at is a brand called South Bend. They're without getting into like Wolf, which is, you're starting at about $4,000. South Bend is, you can find a pretty good, we've looked and even customized exactly how we would want the burners and the size and everything else. It's 2,500,
For that?
3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not that much.
Less than what I'm gonna put in my kitchen.
That's what I'm just saying. Because I'm looking at induction. I think it's 3,000, but the county gives you 500 back
Right.
rebate to electrify.
Yeah, well, don't quote me on those.
Yeah.
But the other thing we've got to do now is find a local retail, this was me going to the website, putting it together and it's
Right.
saying it's suggested retail price of.
Oh, yeah.
We got to find somebody that'll actually sell it to us.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Yep, good. And again, any other questions or anybody wants to dive deeper on budget stuff, I'm happy to set a time to sit down with anybody.
So just one more question on the kitchen. That happening, is that dependent on our staff at this point? If they can do the work?
At that budget level?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, if this was something that we would throw out to bid,
But you are going to ask for that in the budget, 54,000.
I'm hoping to.
Yeah.
I wanna see how, let me get through right now, I'm
It's a
keeping it
placeholder.
there as a placeholder. I need to see how the entire district budget shakes out and where we finish with revenues and expenditures and everything. And I desperately wanna keep it in there, which is why I have it there. I'm hoping to ask for it, and we'll see if it gets approved.
And will you only ask if it works with our staff being able to install it? Or if you already determined that they can't do it for X, Y, and Z reasons, then you're not even gonna put it in?
If our staff can't do it, it'll have to go out to bid. This
Then
number
nobody will
won't,
put it in.
this number won't cut it.
Right.
That number would have to increase dramatically.
Or, so you would increase it?
I don't know that I would have enough room in the budget to increase it, I guess is what I'm saying. I'd love to.
Right.
But just having gone through this experience and knowing where contractors are at.
How much was that?
Said and done, we probably spent close to 100.
Could you do a mix of general funds and measure rate funds and finish it?
Could, I mean, we could mix whatever,
I
but, right now I'm still looking at the,
No, no,
trying
I-
to figure out what the maintenance facility's gonna.
No, I didn't know if you
process.
can take multiple
Oh, yeah.
things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, I could, Measure likes it when you have matching funds for things.
Okay.
But right now, I'm trying to say, we're trying to get creative and say, look, what exactly Luke and I are trying to ascertain, and we haven't even had too much time to talk about this or sit down with our park staff, what are we comfortable that they have the skill sets to be able to come in and do? You know, screwing cabinets to the wall is one thing, you know, taking some basic measurements or you go to these big box stores and say, okay, I need a cabinet kit made of this type of material that fits these dimensions, blah, 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 and then screwing those are one thing. Installing the actual countertops is a little bit of a slightly different, trying to get those sealed and sealed against the wall and formed and everything else, is probably my biggest concern.
Well, but then just the time demands. I mean.
You're exactly right, it's an opportunity cost,
It's
John.
not a
Because
small.
if they work on that, what are they not working
Exactly.
I'm
on?
not working on it.
Plus, we have windows, you know, these things can't happen during summer.
Can't.
They can't, you know, I
Right.
mean, there's always periods of time where we could say, okay, kitchen is shut down, we'd have to look at our rentals, we'd have to block off rentals and say, you don't get, anybody who wants to use the facility won't have use of the kitchen for anything from,
And there might be diminished revenue because, you know, our guys may be skilled enough to do it, but how fast are they able to
Right.
do it with the other demands?
it
I don't know.
might be wishful thinking.
You know,
That we're gonna be able to squeeze this in, and my problem with a small project like this going to a bid is, I mean, you know, we didn't even get any bids at one point on the next thing, and then we had to go through the proper motions to say, okay, this is unavailing to the bidding process. And then we started reaching out to other contractors who could realistically work on the project. So before any design or, you know, architecture fees, whatever, we paid $87,000 on that project that included all the appliances and everything else, which is why I think we can bring this down from there significantly. But I would also be looking at different types of materials too.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right. Well, moving on to item number 6, a public request for dedication of district property in recognition of Genevieve Bowling. Something we're looking for approval tonight. I guess the recommendation would be to recommend to the board for final approval the dedication of the Marinwood pool facility in memory and honor of Genevieve Bowling, including the placement of a memorial plaque immediately outside the main doors of the pool facility. You can see what the information Eric put in the packet that we looked at a request a couple of years ago from Ms. Sutter, and forwarded that to the board and it was not approved. I think that was the nexus that brought about our creation and adoption of our policy, our recognition policy. So this is basically the first option, or the first opportunity we have to put that to use. It's a nice letter from Ms. Sutter. I don't know if either of you knew Genevieve Golding. I sat on a pool commission with her back in the 90s, and it was kind of like dealing with your mother.
Good or bad?
Yeah, we gotta keep mom happy. I mean, but she, you know, I mean, I've been around here for over 25 years, and she was, man, you know, I see her little car parked there in that first spot, and so I support this. I think it's, you know, hopefully by following the format of the policy, that it allows the board to, allow them to back up our recommendation and to put this forth. I can't think of another instance or another person that would reach this magnitude here in our community. I mean, I don't know who that would be, so if that doesn't sit well, then, you know, so we'll just kind of forget about history, I think, and just keep moving forward. But I think it's nice to reflect back sometimes and see what, wow, this person, you know, long before my family was here, long before my kids were born, or, you know, just kind of that, I think that develops a sense of community when you have recognition of things like that. But other things?
I'm sorry, so they're asking to dedicate the building itself?
Right, it's a property, I guess. So it would be the pool facility. So not just the entry building, but the whole facility, the whole pool.
To be clear, and Luke and I talked about this, if staff is not recommending we formally call it the Genevieve Boulding
Right.
Pool Facility.
Right.
It'll be the Marinwood Pool Facility. What we are recommending is a plaque that sits immediately outside the front doors there that says, "The Marinwood Pool Facility is dedicated in the memory and honor of Jenny Boulding, you know, the first district manager of the inception of Marinwood CSD," with a little thing stating her, you know, dates of life at the bottom, something along those lines. We're not gonna start calling it the Boulding Pool.
Right.
But anybody who comes in and out will clearly see that the facility itself is dedicated to. In the same light that, you know, you see the Howie Council Community Center sign when you walk in. With that said,
Nobody calls it.
we don't even refer to it that in anything. I think we have a couple things that call it the Bill Gordon Hall. Otherwise, it's the Marinwood Community Center and it's the
Right.
community center room. You know, so that's where our head's at. We're not looking to rebrand
Yeah.
the pool per se,
Yeah.
but, you know, to dedicate it in the memory and honor of. And I think there's too many of those things. They specifically, you know,
Yes.
requested either the community center, the pool, or the park. I think there's too many things like that already in the community center.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that at the pool, and I think, I have rationale for the park, but my understanding is one of the things that she was passionate about was getting that pool built, so.
And she served on the pool commission, maybe, so.
Yes.
So it would be a plaque that is where exactly?
Outside the front doors,
On the wall?
yep.
Just like at eye level on the wall, like plaque, like how big?
Well, there are actually within.
By 14 or 18 by 20.
Yeah, there is actually, the policy speaks to the sizings.
No larger than
Right, so it'd be your typical bronze plaque, And the policy also speaks to the request, it'd be funded through the requester. Those plaques are a few $100 and our staff can put it on pretty easily. So it would look nice, and it would, certainly memorialize her and, probably make some sort of mention towards her efforts in having, the construction of the pool facility for the community to enjoy.
There's, I've been in community centers that have rooms dedicated after people, like the Golding Room or whatever, and it's like I don't know. I don't have an objection to it. I just I feel like we have a plaque in the playground, right? Isn't there one in there for
There's
somebody else?
several plaques in the playground.
Yeah. I think
Some that are
some little-
adorned in benches for as memorials, and then there's one that sits on that rock for Tom Kunkel, recognizing his
Yeah.
however many years
Right.
of service on the Park and Rec
And then
Commission.
there's one for Tom Horn.
Tom Horn had a trail named after him,
Right.
so there's a
Isn't there a
trail
plaque
out.
out there too?
No, it's up it's on the trail itself,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know, does it become cluttery after a while if we keep having plaques and things named after people? I don't know this person, I don't mean to diminish her, it sounds like she did a lot.
No, I certainly understand what you're saying, because you don't want it to be
Like,
cluttered.
Cemetery.
yeah.
And I think,
It's not
right,
cemetery.
but I think this policy now kind of gives us those guidelines where I believe this is a situation that we, that I can support, where I think that, the next case would be, have to stand on its own merit, and it wouldn't just be that we, approve as people come to us with things like that. I don't expect to do this too often either, but so I definitely understand your point of, I know, I recall Kimberly was like a sign for this, a sign for that, a sign, and it's like, no.
Yeah.
But I think this, I supported the one for Tom Kunkel as well, because, to me, putting up with this stuff for 28 years, that, we should have built a statue.
For plaque, John?
I'm gonna be around for the
Yeah.
28 years, so.
Yeah, I agree, John, to your point, and I think this is what this fixes, because I think what happened in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, is someone would say, my kid died and we used to come to this park and, I want this little thing on this bench, right? And with this, I think, puts those parameters where it's like they had to have made a significant contribution, whatever you find that
Sure.
is. Not it was like my favorite park. So I think the clutter will stop, to your point, with this. And the validity of what she said, like I didn't know her, I didn't know that she did all this. My question was going to be is like, other than, I did a Google search on it to see like what did she do, and the only things that came up were obituaries that really just restated this letter. So like, I have no reference to know that how active she was or she wasn't, but you had it, Like, so the only thing that I would say going forward with that is like, is there a way, that's why I asked you if they were coming, like, was there a way to clarify a statement of service for those who don't know? But you answered that for me. So I, based on the policy and where I think why we created this policy, then I would support, having the plaque put up by the pool.
Anything else, John?
No, I'm not opposed to it. It gives me just a sense of caution about
Yes.
how we move forward with these types of dedications. And I know John McLaren, the first superintendent for Willingham Park, used to get really annoyed because people wanted to keep putting statues up. and in honor of this person and that person, and he used to just plant them out. He would just plant trees and shrubs in front of, because there was just too many after time. And,
I know that story.
yeah, and I just, I don't know. I would want it to be meaningful, and if you have plaques up all over the place, does that take away from the meaning of some of these people? And I mean, this person actually sounds like somebody who was really significant,
Right.
but if there's
Just to minimize it.
if there's 20 plaques of all these different people, it's like, you know. But I mean, if you guys are, yeah, it's. I guess I just wanted to express that.
Well, I think from hearing what Shane said, I think we both kind of support that
Yeah.
perspective. And so, I guess if there's nothing else, I will ask for a motion. That would be to, go back to, I guess, as I stated, recommend to the board for final approval the dedication of the Marinwood pool facility in memory and honor of Genevieve Boulding, including the placement of a memorial plaque immediately outside the main doors of the pool facility. I know that the policy states either a letter from the board or somehow another form of recommendation or recognition. I'm not sure if we match up to all those. So I think that we can give it to the commission like that, and they can take it from there. So a motion to approve.
I'll say
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Motion passes. Moving on, item number 7, the Recreation and Park Maintenance Activity Report. Mr. Fretwell.
Thank you. The biggest news going on this month is we finally have a new recreation supervisor in the rec department, so we've been made whole again. Stephanie Moray started on Friday, and she'll be overseeing all aquatics programs, the pool staff, adult programs, and some of our special events. Essentially the role I used to play for the rec department. And we're very excited to have her. And a few days in, things are going well, and we're all very optimistic and feeling like things are moving in the right direction. So it's, of course, been nice when she's trained and fully taken all of those things off of my plate. But in the meantime, we're having a good time learning the ropes and getting all that figured out. So I'm excited to bring her to one of these meetings so you can meet her, or if you guys are just around, come on in. She's currently taking an EMT class, which is just for fun, which is awesome, but it's on these nights. So, but soon that'll be done. So that's a big change, and we're really excited to have her, and so that's going on. The pool's open for the Water Devils, and we open up for the general public on Monday. So we're getting a bunch of stuff figured out down there, and making sure all of our staff are ready to go, and working on the schedule, and getting things cleaned and prepped for that. And we're excited to see all the familiar faces back down there on Monday. I'm sure a lot of people have been buying the pool memberships this last few weeks. A lot of the regular lap swimmers have been coming in, so that's been fun. So far, it seems like the swim team season's going well, and things have been running pretty smoothly down there thus far. So on the maintenance side, so still a lot of work to be done this week, but on the rec side, things are going well towards the pool season. We've got some new classes going on that we're excited about. Our Spanish class is filling, it's just started off and is pretty full, and we've got our photography class going on that we're excited to have back, and some like enrichment we haven't had for a little while. Seems to be a lot of interest for some of those programs, and that's been great. On the park side of things, this winter's definitely taken a toll on the land and on things, and we've been dealing with clogged drains and some trees coming down and some erosion in the park, and so we're working on planning out extension of the fence along this first field along the creek there to sort of protect the area on the, between where the sidewalk, where the path is, and the creek is, we've lost a lot of, or lost some significant chunks of earth there this winter, and so it's a little
Is it the same
hazardous.
side as last year?
No, this field, the field closest to us, but, like across that tree line from where the area was last year.
By the bench?
Yeah, by the bench and moving towards the playground along that whole bank there. Well, we lost a big tree a couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago now, and a bunch of earth with it, and it looks like there's more that can potentially go, and so it's a little treacherous out there, not sure how stable the ground is right up to the cliff there, so we're gonna extend that fence just to kind of, keep people from walking too close. And then that's just something that's gonna be an ongoing issue as we lose more earth with these big winter storms. I was looking at what we do to kind of shore that up and keep the, hold on to the land.
Is it the split rail fence you're extending?
Yeah, they're working it just as a, mostly it's a visual, barrier there. So we're looking at getting materials to extend the split rail. That one area we did around the bend, just kind of keep that going towards the existing fence closer to the playground. So working on that. We also have, I guess on the report, there's a sinkhole out in the Panhandle that opened up about a month ago that we are looking at trying to diagnose. It looks like there's a drain pipe underneath it that may or may not be rotting out and pulling earth into it as when the water is really rushing. So we're waiting until things kind of slow down with the water so we can get a look at that and see what's going on with that. But in the meantime, we've got that blocked off and we try to diagnose that and see how to address it. But our guys have been busy, just dealing with fallout from the storm. So we're looking forward to spring and maybe an end to the rains. Other projects coming up, we're going to be updating some of our landscaping around the entrance here, and in the parks and picnic areas as we get ready for our rentals, and getting the pool. There's a few final touches to get things up and running for the season, and making sure the slides are ready to go and the wading pool and stuff like that. So you guys have been busy kind of helping get all that figured out. Any questions?
That area that I worked on with the staff a couple years ago, it's pretty weedy. It's not looking very good. Are you guys planning on getting more plants to put in there?
So yeah, that's definitely on our list as far as like the weeds are coming up in many areas. So we're looking to redo some of the weed barrier there and to spruce that up. And yeah, it needs to be, at the very least, it needs to be weeded. So that's definitely on our list to get that. And I think that the fence going through will probably just go around the back side of that program. I think all the plants will be within that. As far as new plantings, I'd be happy to talk about some of that. But
well, because the intent initially was to plant that much denser. We didn't get the quantity of plants that we had hoped, and some of the plants died. So, I mean, I want the guys to kind of own it, and so there's plants in that area that have done well, like the juncuses have done well, the grasses and some of the other, I think the manzanita. But I mean, whatever plants are doing well in that area, they could just get more of them.
yeah, no, I'm totally open to that. Yeah, I mean I think
it would take the weeding down quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think now that we're planning on extending that fence, it's going to change a little bit of the landscape and aesthetic of that whole swath of land there. And once we have that, it's going to be framed a little bit differently. I'd like to look at like how can we expand or extend, or how's that going to, what makes sense. Right now, there's like 4 different sort of terrains going on as you walk along, and I think it just, we have to do something a little more cohesive, and I'd love to extend the things that are working for sure. So yeah, no, that's definitely in the plans, especially once we know what the fence line is going to be, and we'll start to flesh that out for sure. So.
And then the pathway that Linda has brought up in the past, like, I just kind of want clarification. Is that a priority for you and your workload, or is that something that we are not?
Do you mean the area from the walkway, Quietwood, to the Panhandle?
Yeah.
As far as I feel like, well, it's become the last few meetings was that we were basically not addressing that in any meaningful way, but
Because it's not a priority between all the other issues you have going on and challenges, that does not percolate to the top.
I would say it hasn't been, I don't know if it's been deemed a priority to, like, and what to do and how to do. I don't think that was anything that's been concluded so far in this process. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if
No, I agree. I also don't think it's really been concluded as the potential hazard that it's made out to be.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting it is, it's just come up several times.
Right.
And if it comes up again, I just want there to be a clear answer.
Yeah, well, and I think the one thing that we do need to do, and to kind of Luke's point too, is they're getting ready to get into a lot more of this type of stuff, is that, there is a lot of dead foliage and, leaves and debris and everything, all that needs to kind of get cleaned and moved away and everything. This winter, especially starting from about the beginning of February up until, literally just the last few days everything's been so reactionary to just the sheer amounts of water and weather that we've gotten. I do think that area needs to get cleaned up. As far as addressing or looking at trying to change the slope or put in some sort of stabilizer there, but I don't think, especially as we've looked and keep looking at it with each time we walk down the panhandle, I don't think it represents the hazard that it's been made out to be. I do recognize that when it's wet and raining, it is dirt and becomes slick and muddy. I don't know necessarily what to say about that. I don't necessarily.
I don't think that you need to say anything else. I just wanted to be clear because I want to have a clear, unified answer
Right.
the next time that comes up, because I guess it hasn't been clear if it was a priority or if it was anywhere near a priority for you. But
Yeah,
doesn't
well,
sound-
I think from our perspective, like, there's a lot of things that could be done there, but the question is, should those things be done? Not, can we get to it, or do we have the resources? It's more like, is this something that brings in a whole other can of worms if we start, does that change what that area is, and is that something we want to do? Not so much can we do something. So that's, I think, where, from staff perspective, looking at direction from whoever's giving it, but does this area need to be addressed, and if so, we'll do that. That's sort of where we're at on that, and it's kind of like leaving things natural. It's a natural trail. There's a sidewalk that leads to a natural trail, and people seem to be navigating it fine from what we witnessed. And there's some leaves and debris we can clean up for sure, but that seems to be the easiest solution. It doesn't open up a whole bunch of other issues, and so that's sort of where we're at on that at the moment, until further notice or corrections.
So then it seems that the answer will be that staff, when the time is available, will rake the area clean, redistribute that leaf matter over the ivy or the grass or something that can act as a mulch or weed barrier, and just.
Or haul it out with other debris when we're
Right,
doing that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
but I mean, it's organic, I think a lot of oak leaf, it's just,
Right.
it'll make a fine mulch as well, so, but just, when staff time allows, and let it go at that, but, no other improvement.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what my understanding is that.
Yep.
Either they'll get to it when they can, or they've already gotten to it, and it is what it is. All right.
I think that's the official line.
Anything else on the park maintenance? Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Item number 8, request for future agenda items. What else do you guys want to talk about?
The only thing, and I think we have to do it in the next meeting, from a standpoint is, I'm just curious, obviously tonight, there's nobody here, but, I don't want a repeat of what happened with, vocal members of the public out in the field when we do the walking tour and not have documentation other than hearsay, right? So in this setting, there's a camera, right? Right. The roles are reversed out on the park, and I don't want to be in the same position I was in last time. So I don't know how we're going to address it when we leave the confines of this room to conduct commission business. But I don't know what the plan is to, one, properly document through the lens of safety in the vein of, you know, I'm still really not over the threat, and that nothing has happened from a police matter, but that's not this commission. So I don't know what that looks like. And if it's just me, then it's just me. But I'm saying that's a concern that I have, that if we have to agendize it and talk it through next month, that's fine. Or you could say, Shane, it is what it is, go on, you know, off we go. But
You know, if we're doing a site inspection, does that have to be open to the public? Because we're just, like, we're viewing. Like, we're not
You're gathering as a body,
just any gathering of a
talking
body.
about items underneath your purview. Yeah, it does. I think, you know,
What if we don't
I don't know how
talk? What
well.
if we just look and then we come back here and talk?
Right, well, I was gonna say, I don't know how well it turns out. I mean, some areas are easier for that than others, and we certainly could do that. It just extends the night a little bit, which is fine. But, with that said, I mean, we can take our best crack at, you know, trying to record it. Production quality will be poor.
Get a GoPro and stick it on.
Well, I mean, this is a simple little handheld camcorder. It's not it wouldn't be that hard to bring it out for somebody to operate it. And I don't know that it'll turn out any good. But with that said, I think it is a response to Shane's concern that it is documenting what is happening, and if any of the, you know, type of similar outbursts or whatever, I understand one happened in a meeting I wasn't at over by the maintenance facility, it would capture that.
I guess the other option is we all have cell phones. That if we find ourselves in a situation where we want documentation, then there's no reason we can't have it from 5 different perspectives. I mean,
Yeah, I would caution you on putting things like that on your personal device, because then you open up your personal device to all sorts of other
okay,
items.
That's a strong point.
But we can bring the camera. You know, we'll do our best to figure it out. Whoever's operating it will be hard to interact in any other way, because you're kind of busy trying to do this, and it might be sloppy and shaky and everything else, but I think if nothing else, it gets it. The point of it isn't to have this high production level recording. I promise you, it's not what it is right now, but it actually is pretty good, and you know, kudos to Luke and the park guys who put a lot of time and effort into setting this thing up and working with the sound and getting it as good as we could for what it is. And I actually thought the board meeting, the production quality of it was good, considering what it is. You know, I mean, it is public access meeting at its finest, but you know, we don't have an operator, is the point. So we can do that the best we can. If we wanted to, we could always, to your point, John, do the meeting and then come back. You know, or do the inspection and then continue with the rest of the meeting here, or.
So we could do that,
Oh, yeah.
but
we have.
what's that?
We could. Yeah.
So what would that entail? Like, so if we were to meet out, say, at the Panhandle, and we're not communicating with one another, then it wouldn't
Oh,
necessarily.
no. You would have one meeting in 2 different places. You would have your meeting, but when the inspection portion of that is over and you get to the rest of the agenda,
We do it here.
then I think the other thing to do is try to actively pare down the agenda as much as possible.
So if we met in the field, that wouldn't necessarily be open to the public?
No, you would have
The
your
whole
meeting,
thing would.
but then your meeting would end in this
Yeah.
room.
We
Yeah,
wouldn't, we
no,
wouldn't have
definitely
a comment out there,
Yeah.
we wouldn't
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
right, we wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? It would minimize that one piece.
Yeah.
Or
In essence, you would take a 15-minute recess from when that ends to when this begins.
Yeah, but
So
that
you-
wouldn't solve the first half of it, you know.
Right, no, you're still
No.
recording it in that such a way, but at least somebody's not out there trying to hold this thing and do it the whole time. You would go through your inspection, you would call a recess, you know, for the meeting to resume in this room, I'd have to note it pretty carefully on the agenda as to where and things are taking place. And then you come back to this room. The only real hard area for that is gonna be the Creekside one. When you go to Creekside Park in Lucas Valley Estates. All the other one, you can walk back to here, it's not that big of a deal. There's the only place you actually would have to get into a car, leave that area and come back here.
Because if I think about, it doesn't eliminate, it minimizes, right? And so the negative interactions we've had at these have been in this part. The walking part is whatever, you know, I mean, like there's comments back and forth, but like when anything ever got heated at any of these places, we're always
Well,
during the meeting part.
But there was one episode on the Panhandle where it was like a 10-minute tirade about the blackberry. You know, cutting back the blackberry, and it's like, I that's the kind of thing.
I
like,
agree.
I
No,
don't
no,
want the public to take control of our meeting.
Right.
Like, I don't want that ever to happen again.
Right. No, yes.
And so that could still happen out there. And at that location probably would
It
happen.
will happen again.
Yeah.
That's the one that happens.
That
That's
seems
the one
to be
that
the
will
one
happen.
that people are the most passionate
Right.
about.
Nobody goes to Creekside.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? But
Right, and we can always look at moving these, you know, this order is just what we've always done. We don't have to keep with this order, I simply put this on here as, hey, a heads up, we've got these
Mhm.
inspections coming and this is what we've done. It's entirely up to the commission and the commission chair as to what order you would also like to go in. There might be logical reasons to move that portion to later in the year.
I guess that just makes me realize other commissions don't do these site visits, right? Because
No, it's pretty, well, this commission always has, it's pretty unique to
no,
this.
here, but I mean, I think the county Parks Commission, I don't think they do any site visits because I can't imagine them having it open to the public, all walking around together.
Right, yeah, field trips, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, they do Dawson type stuff every now and then too, but it's not part of their official commission.
Yeah, it's not a public meeting.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Bring photos and.
yeah, you know.
I know,
mean-
just like walk through it with a camcorder and then talk about it here.
Well, and I do, yeah, maybe, okay.
Because it's funny, because that's what I did last week. I presented to the Open Space Commission and I just go through a PowerPoint and
Can I make a suggestion? I think that this is already warranted enough conversation that, to Shane's point, you should add this to the next month's agenda to really talk about, come with some ideas of what these facility inspections are. Are they worthy of continuing? If so, should they be changed in any way, shape, or form? Should commissioners come in ready with their notes from those things? Because the end product of these inspections are two things. One, it educates commissioners on a lot of the things that staff are out there and doing in areas that we're trying to maintain. And two, it helps us help staff get another set of eyes on things and identifying potential projects or potential maintenance needs. Or, I mean, those punch lists are actually pretty helpful, especially, I don't mean to speak for Luke, but, it's easy to kind of give park staff stuff and then prioritizing stuff and saying, hey, as time allows, here's a lot of things that would be nice to check off the list and get done. The staff doesn't ever want to be, say, micromanaged by a body and that, but I don't personally see it that way. I think it's easy to grow complacent when you look at something every day. And that's not saying a bad thing towards the people, it's a human nature thing. When other people are kind of coming out and looking at it with a different set of eyes, sometimes those eyes are too critical. Sometimes those eyes are very helpful and make us realize. So I think a lot of it could be discussed at a future agenda, including the order of which things go down, what those visits should really entail, how to go about doing them. Should it be part of the meeting? Should it be a separate function that commissioners take on kind of on their own between meetings and jot down their notes just to bring back to the meeting and say, hey, here's a few things I noticed. I don't know. It really is a commission call. I do think that there's something that speaks to it in the bylaws.
I was gonna say, I think it's in the bylaws,
that says what?
that we have to do this tour.
That we have to do that?
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying it right, but that's part of the.
Oh.
These facility inspections.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but you do bring up a good point, because I don't ever want that to happen.
No,
And-
I'm done with it.
Yeah, and that place is kind of ripe for that,
Mhm.
so
Well,
it's,
we'll record it as well. You know, we can get the camera out there and figure that part out.
But that's not to say, like you're saying on the next agenda item, we could talk about, do we want to make an amendment to the bylaws of how they happen, right? I mean, they could still, like, there's many ways to have it happen now. Technology's come a long way since those bylaws were probably right. Also, I mean, we, like you said, we can present one of, like, I mean, there's multiple ways we can do it. Each one of us takes one, we document, we do it in a PowerPoint, here's what I saw, this is what I noticed, blah, blah, blah. You know, next month it's you, like this, it's 100 ways we can do it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it
Yeah.
next month.
I'm writing it down. Facility tours and inspection process. Seems like it.
no.
No,
Anything from staff?
We're just, Luke is getting ready for summer, getting ready for a thing. Right now I'm focused on budget as well as some other larger projects and litigations.
Litigation,
That's it, we've been dealing with one for a while.
from the fire department.
No, from a.
Landslide?
Yeah.
Mm.
That's been going on
It's
for
a
a
long
while.
time.
Hey, how did Queenstone hold up, do you know? I
Uh,
didn't see any sediment on the road.
no, the tree fell, blocked the road. Did Jorge's come out?
Yeah,
Already cleared it.
I mean, we-
Everything I know says Queenstone held up well. I haven't personally been up there. I know the park guys went up as far as where the tree fell and blocked access to the road, and then we hired, it was a large tree beyond our capability of clearing it out, so we brought in an outside company to zip, keep the road clear and moving. But as far as I know, it worked out good. I never did find the true origin of all of that,
The
the
flooding?
stuff on
Yeah.
Miller Creek Road,
Yeah.
but I seriously doubt it was from that.
No, I don't think so, yeah,
Yeah, but I tell you, those storm drains got overwhelmed,
yeah.
you know, because things were bubbling out of that one cover on that
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
You know, I think it deteriorated where that sinkhole was. We had some people come out and basically said, your best thing to do here is to scope it. And the nearest entry point is in the creek, and right now, there's still too much water moving through there to run up and examine it. So the best thing we could do is make public aware of this hole and the hazardous condition and go on. We also have to look at a few other things for us too, so.
That project that you talked to, that you presented to us a couple of times, like, is there another presentation, like, I'm just curious.
The Ponte Road to Trail conversion, so, we are, actually just today, we finished a draft of the SEQA document. So we have that for internal review, our legal team needs to look at it. My guess is in about a month, we will put that out to the public. And then once there's a 30-day comment period after that, we will do a response to comments. Assuming the project, gets approved through the SEQA process, then ideally we would start construction mid-July. So,
Notice public hearing as part of that 30-day review process.
no, there's no other public meeting, but it would be posted. It goes out, I personally email it to all of our stakeholders,
Right.
and then they have 30 days to comment.
So we would be able to comment
Yeah.
in that period?
On the SEQA document, yeah.
Is there an EIR on that deck or anything? that
It's,
comes with
it is a mitigated negative declaration, so.
it? You don't need to have a public hearing as part of the comment process, huh?
Well, not a public meeting, but we legally have to have a 30-day
Right.
public comment period.
Right, I thought so, there also had to be a noticed public hearing that we could come and make comment for too.
The comments are done via email.
You
Right,
did that,
right.
right? Did you?
Well, we had a public meeting here, I presented to the board, and I have a whole long list from going about 2.5 years back of the public process, meeting with some of the HOAs and the Firewise community and neighbors and stakeholders and site visits, and meeting here with this commission and then presenting to the board. So there was a lot of public, I have it all documented. So, but if the project is approved, then mid-July we would construct.
Wow.
So yeah, it's exciting. Do you have a question, Art?
No,
Oh.
no, I just was
You had a
wondering-
frown.
No, well, I just was more on the, because, you know, we did a public hearing when we did the mitigated neg debt, and the initial study and everything else, and for some reason I was, I'm under the assumption that that was required, due to the type of document that it was.
Not for us, for this.
Okay, well, yeah,
yeah.
I'm not doubting it.
No.
And maybe we just did it out of an abundance of
I mean,
transparency.
Well, it's not a bad idea
Right.
to do those public meetings, and you know,
Right.
we try to be liberal with our public process because we don't want anybody to say that there wasn't adequate public process.
Right.
But we feel like we've reached out to a lot of people on this and talked for over 2 years, so.
Love it.
If there's nothing else, we'll adjourn the meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
I like the new setup. It feels so special.
It's fun.